The 2021 NBA playoffs have been a lot of fun, full of teams we thought would go far being upset in the earlier rounds, and teams we didn't expect to make it this far, going maybe even as far to the conference finals. And with the conference finals in full swing, two players have stood out to me the most: the Phoenix Suns all-star shooting guard Devin Booker and the Atlanta Hawks franchise point guard Trae Young. They stand out to me because both of them were victims at some point in their young careers of the empty stats narrative, due to them putting up big numbers on teams that weren't good. However, I want to talk about this narrative today because I have plenty of thoughts on that entire narrative in general, and these two players are the biggest examples of why I just don't believe in this narrative at all. But before we get into today's video, I've noticed that about 60.5% of you guys that watch my videos happen to not be subscribed. So happen to fall into that 60.5%, or you just happen to be new and like what you see. Feel free to like, subscribe, hit notification bell to be notified whenever I release a video. I make videos to take elements from film essays and apply them to basketball. I also make videos covering the NBA draft and high school basketball as well. So if any of those things are of an interest to you, this is the channel for you. Let's try to get 100 likes on this video so YouTube will recommend it to others. But with that being said, let's get right into the video. I do believe that empty stats can exist. I do think that players can put up big numbers on teams, and the stats are just a product of the team not being good around them and them getting more shots, and you know they probably wouldn't be doing this on a contender. The biggest example of this would be in 2001 when Jerry Stackhouse averaged almost 30 points a game, but the efficiency wasn't good at only 52 true shooting percentage, and the Pistons were only a 32-win team. And considering his numbers dipped to 21 points per game the next season when the Pistons won 50 games, on top of the fact they never put up scoring numbers that were close to what he did in that 2001 season on a good team, it does lead me to believe that the season was a product of empty stats. Do I think Jerry Stackhouse was a bad player? Absolutely not. I think that he was actually a pretty good player. Do I think that specific season in his career was a product of empty stats on an empty team? Yeah, I do. Another more recent example of this would be Andrew Wiggins. In his third season, Andrew Wiggins averaged 23.6 points per game on a 53.4 true shooting percentage on a team that only won 31 games. However, the very next season, when the Wolves did make the playoffs, Wiggins averaged 17.7 points per game. And you might be saying that's because they added Jimmy Butler, so Wiggins would have to take a back seat, as Butler would command a bigger role in the offense. However, Wiggins led the Timberwolves in field goal attempts that year in both total and per game, had the second highest usage rating among starters on the team, and mind you, he was still third in scoring on that team. When you lead a team in field goal attempts per game and total while also having the second highest usage rating among starters on the team, you expect someone to be more than just a 17 point per game scorer and a third option. Also, plenty of the advanced metrics and on and off numbers suggest that he was a negative on the court despite leading a 47-win team in total minutes played. And Wiggins' numbers on above average teams aren't good either, and they aren't close to the new 24 points per game he averaged in his third season. What these two examples have in common is being outlier seasons, low efficiency, and being on bad teams. I think an empty stats player is someone who doesn't have good efficiency, is on a bad team, and doesn't have numbers that are close to as good as that season when they are on good teams. I alluded to this earlier on, but I do believe that efficiency is a big factor in if stats are empty or not. Because if you can score efficiently, that shows me that you aren't just a shot chucker that's taking the most shots because no one else on the team will. It's showing that you can score at an efficient level. From his third season to his most recent season, Devin Booker averaged 26 points per game on a 58.9 true shooting percentage, which is above league average. He also had shown improvement as a passer as well, getting close to 7 assists per game twice before he really let Chris Paul take that responsibility this season. However, I still think that the passing improvement is evident in his play. I also think the fact that Devin Booker scored 70 points on a 68 true shooting percentage in the game at just 20 years old is a good sign that he is going to be a special scorer. Now let's look at the other example, Trae Young. Over his last 2 seasons, Trae Young is averaging 27.4 points a game and 9.4 assists per game on a 59.2 true shooting percentage, which again is above league average. And it's also really good considering the fact that he's one of the smallest guards in the league. I believe that if you can score efficiently, that means you can have a big impact on a winning team as a scorer. It shows that you aren't just a shot chucker, you can score efficiently. Also, I think that improvement in other areas is a sign that your stats aren't empty either, with Devin Booker showing improvement as a passer and Trae Young entering the league as a top 5 to 10 passer in the league, showing that you have other skills on top of being an efficient scorer is a good sign, regardless of the situation, which brings me to my next point. I think that some people believe that win total is attached to the impact of a player. I believe that sometimes it's not about the best player's lack of impact or lack of value that they bring, but rather it's about the lack of talent and support around that player. I know the Suns are doing great now, they're likely on their way to a finals hopefully, and they're doing great. However, for a while they were one of the worst teams in the league and one of the worst run teams in the league. Whether that be drafting Dragon Bender over Jamal Murray, whether that be drafting Josh Jackson over De'Aaron Fox, although I think at the time that made sense considering how high everyone was on Josh Jackson, you get the idea of why it just wasn't a good situation for Devin Booker. However, once they added good talent, including a future Hall of Fame point guard in Chris Paul, they started winning this year. And you might say, oh, that's because they added Chris Paul and he had a big impact, but Devin Booker was still putting up really good numbers that were good enough to land him an all-star spot. And he's been awesome in the playoffs as well, even with Chris Paul's injury, averaging 27 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, and 5 assists per game, including a 47-point game in the first round to eliminate the Lakers, and a 40-point triple-double in his first ever conference finals game. And with Trae Young, it was just more about the team, well, no pun intended, being young around him in his second season. John Collins got suspended for a little while, and obviously at the time he was their second best player. I think that was pretty clear. DeAndre Hunter and Cam Reddish were rookies, and Trae Young himself was still in his second season like I mentioned earlier. However, once the Hawks got more players around Trae and they gained more experience to the team, the Hawks made the playoffs, and Trae put up numbers that probably should have had him on All-Star and All-NBA teams. And he's been excellent in the playoffs as well, averaging 29 points a game and 10 assists per game, including a 48-point, 7-rebound, 11-assist game in the conference finals. So the fact that they can put up good numbers on playoff teams and show out in the playoffs shows me that they aren't empty stat players, because they controlled what they could control even if the team around them wasn't good. Sometimes teams are just young, other times they just aren't ran well, and even sometimes it's a mix of both. I expect guys like Zach LaVine to break the mold considering the fact that, Zach LaVine just had one of the most efficient scoring seasons in recent memory. De'Aaron Fox is someone who will break the mold once he leaves in Sacramento. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has already broken the mold as he averaged pretty good numbers on a playoff team. But once he puts up 24, 5, and 6 on a good team, like I think he can, he's probably going to break the mold as well. The point is that for a lot of these young players, it's not about putting up empty stats, it's about being in a situation where the team around them is empty. And I kind of wish we would just not use this whole empty stats argument for young players anymore, especially considering when they enter the league, they're super young, they're like teenagers basically. Then they usually go to bad teams to the top of the draft where they're going to get more opportunity and they showcase their skill. And when your teams are young and they're bad and they're developing hopefully, they're not going to win a lot, but you can still put up big numbers and show a lot of promise that can say, hey, he can do this on a contender one day. I just don't like this argument. It's like, oh, because he's not putting up numbers on a winning team, he can't put up winning numbers on a winning team. Because sometimes it's just about the situation around them. Not everyone can be the transformative player that LeBron or Steph or KD are. Sometimes you need to be in a good situation in order to have your numbers mean impact. We saw it with Devin Booker. We saw it with Trae Young. And, I just think sometimes not only do people need to be more patient, but you also need to understand the context behind situations as well. But that is the end of this video. If you've made it to this point, thank you so much. Again, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, do all those things, be a big help to me. Let me know what you think about empty stats and that whole idea in the comment section below. I would love to hear your opinions on after I basically just gave my whole opinion on that ideal. So yeah, I would love to hear that stuff in the comment section below. If you have more time, go watch another video. This is upload number 399 on this channel. So I'm closing in on 400 videos. So I have almost 400 videos on this channel. So I'm more than likely you'll find something else that you like. So if you have more time, go watch another video. I would really appreciate that. But with that being said, have a nice day.